Hello, welcome to Michelle Reads Books. Today we are talking about the BFG by Roald Dahl. As I have mentioned before, Roald Dahl was my favorite author growing up, and the BFG is one I had read many years ago, and I've also read it to my children and just recently recorded. So, the BFG, I'm going to give you a summary really quickly and then talk about how I feel about the book. Sophie is an orphan and awake in the middle of the night when she notices movement outside her window. She sees a giant stoop down to the upstairs window and blow something using a horn into the neighbor's window. The giant notices her and snatches her up in her blanket. He carries her to his cave, and the giant and Sophie talk about how most giants eat people and how they all taste similar to the name of the place they are from. Turks taste like turkey, like that. Then Sophie asks if the giant is going to eat her, and he explains that he is a big, friendly giant, and he's a vegetarian. This giant has huge ears and speaks using made-up words that sound similar to real words. He says things like human beings and moochling around. His grammar is quite bad as well. He says that compared to the other giants, he's the smallest and the only one that is kind. He also eats snozcumbers, which taste terrible, and only drinks frobscottle, which is a drink where the bubbles go down instead of up, and we get the obligatory fart joke. To prove his difference to other giants, another giant comes in, and to stay safe, Sophie hides inside the snozcumber. Unfortunately, in order to distract the giant who correctly guesses that the BFG is talking to a person that he wants to find and eat, BFG talks him into trying a snozcumber. So Sophie ends up inside the giant's mouth. However, since the snozcumber tastes so bad, the giant spits her out, and Sophie lands on the BFG's cloak. She hides until the giant leaves. She asks what the giant was doing at her neighbor's house, and he explains that he can hear dreams flying around with his huge ears, and he catches them and puts them into jars. He then blows them into children's rooms while they're sleeping, so the children can dream about them. The BFG prepares to go out to get more dreams and puts Sophie into his pocket to come with him. When the other giants see him leaving, they decide to harass him for fun. They pick him up and toss him to each other like a weird game of ball. Eventually, they get bored of this and allow him to leave. The BFG and Sophie make it to where the dreams are, and the BFG catches a couple and puts them into jars, one of which is a bad nightmare. Upon their return, they find all the other giants sleeping. The BFG decides to release the nightmare on the worst of the giants. He dreams of Jack and the Beanstalk and thrashes about, waking the other giants and causing a fight. Sophie spends some time looking at the dreams in the BFG's collection when they hear the other giants leaving. They report they are going to England to eat children from schools. Sophie, horrified at the thought of children just like her getting snatched out of their beds and eaten, comes up with a plan to stop the giants. She wants to mix up a dream about giants eating children and then returning to giant country, then a big friendly giant hiding nearby who can take one there, and a girl named Sophie sitting on the windowsill. She wants to give this dream to the Queen of England, and Sophie wants to sit on the windowsill, making that part of the dream come true to help the Queen to believe the entire dream. They execute their plan, with Sophie waiting outside the Queen's window to wait until her nightmare is over. The Queen awakens when a maid enters the room. The Queen tells the maid about her dream of the giants, and the maid drops the breakfast tray in shock, explaining that it had just been reported that dozens of children were missing from boarding schools in England, and bones were found beneath the windows. Sophie is discovered, and she explains about the BFG. The Queen invites them to breakfast. Hilarity ensues when breakfast is arranged with the BFG in the ballroom. Improvised furniture and dishes are used to serve the BFG, with him eating enormous amounts of food. The Queen asks for proof of the BFG's story, and he tells her about their escapades of the past few nights, and the Queen is able to substantiate these stories. She comes up with a plan to stop the giants. The plan is to use helicopters to fly into giant country and tie up giants with chains while they sleep. Then use those helicopters to transport them elsewhere, as well as retrieve the BFG's dream collection. They execute their plan, tying up 8 of the 9 giants while they are asleep. The 9th awakens while they are trying to get him in the right position to be tied up. Sophie uses a brooch the queen gave her to stab the giant in the ankle, and the BFG tricks him that it was a snake bite and tells him to hold his ankles to stop the venom. He ties his hands to his ankles. The helicopters transport the giants back to England. Back in England, 10,000 workers just finished the deepest pit in the world. The giants were put into the pit, and the BFG threw snozcumbers at them for them to eat. The BFG built a house near the Queen with a cottage for Sophie next to it. The BFG learned to read and write properly and eventually wrote a book about himself and Sophie, signing another name to it, which was the book we just read. So, what do I think of this book? I think that it's very funny. It's very whimsical, a little bit dark. There are a couple of things that annoy me a little bit. One of them is that the BFG makes fun of people. Like, he's always calling other people stupid. And I think it's because he feels stupid himself, that he feels self-conscious about his own intellect, and therefore he puts other people down. But I don't like it at all. He's always telling Sophie how stupid she is. And that really bothers me. The other thing is the incredible, impracticality of it all. It's like, let's just go and talk to the queen. She'll fix everything. Yeah, okay. Yeah, people with a lot of power can fix a lot of things, but not on that timeline and not in that way. It's very impractical to dig a pit that's deeper than any that has ever been dug in order to keep the giants in a very small enclosed space. It's very, very impractical what they were doing. And obviously it's not meant to be practical, it's fantasy, but I don't know, even if something like that were to happen, it wouldn't happen this way. And so that is a little bit annoying. It's kind of breaking laws of physics and stuff. I don't know. I think that decent fantasy also keeps laws of physics intact. That is my opinion. So, but not everybody has to agree with me. It is very fantastic fantasy, so it's fine in that sense. It's not really meant to be realistic. Anyways, but I found that really, it's a really fun book. It's a really fun, happy, funny book. Yeah, with a lot of the funny things that happen, like the breakfast scene is very funny, and also the fart jokes, if you're into that, stuff like that. But it's a bit of a trope at the end, being like, he wrote a book and you just read it, I believe he used the same thing in James and the Giant Peach, Roald Dahl, you're reusing your own stories, which is fine, I guess, but come on. Also, there's a very abbreviated version of this that comes up when Danny, the Champion of the World. But either way, I do think it's a sweet story. It's cute, it's good for kids who have big imaginations. It's not a bad review in any sense. It's just, there are a few points that it could be better. But the biggest thing that annoys me is the BFG making fun of Sophie and other people as well, being like, you're an idiot, you're so stupid. It's like, really? Come on, dude. Anyways, but that's just my opinion. Let me know your opinion down in the comments below. By the way, I wanted to start including the length of time it took to read these books. This one is around 3 hours-ish. And that's how long it took me. So I'm not going to be more precise than that. I think that's good enough. But let me know what you think, and happy reading.